What is happening, guys? Scotty Plays here, bringing you another Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel video. And in today's video, we're going to be talking about the ban list that just got released a few days ago on September 29th, and will be going effect on October 10th. And we will also be having a Kashtira discussion. And I'll be going over this deck profile really quickly, and then also talking about the deck and what Konami might need to do about the pending, what I'm calling Kashtira problem that we will soon be facing in Master Duel. So without further ado, let's jump right on into the video. Talking about the ban list, it's pretty small, so there's not too much to talk about. We have Luster Pendulum going for the Draco Slayer going from 2 to 3. This is just a buff for Draco Slayer, but really this is a nerf to Draco Slayer because we're getting Kashtira, right? No, all jokes aside, this is a nice little buff, but I don't think it's really going to do too much. The deck, whatever. This wasn't really good at 1, it wasn't good at 2, it's probably not good at 3. We'll see if anyone is able to do something with this. Gossip Shadow, this is unbanned because Rongo is now banned. Of course, if any of you guys missed the last ban list, Rongo got banned, which was quite nice. Yeah, this really should have got unbanned last list, but I'm glad they're doing it now. We have Analyzer going from 2 to 3. This is obviously coming back because Block Dragon is banned. Once again, for those of you who missed it, Block Dragon did get banned, as it should have, and this probably should have just gone to 3 when Block Dragon got banned. So yeah, nothing too crazy here. None of this is really going to be meta impactful. Then for meta stuff, we have Beaver going from 3 to 1. I personally think this is a hit to Tri-Sprite, not Pure Sprite, because Pure Sprite hasn't really been doing anything the past, well, few months. It hasn't really been doing much. Not that Tri-Sprite's really doing anything, but look at just the Master Duel meta tier list. There's really nothing going on here with Sprite, but and if we look over here, popularity-wise, that's actually a lot different than I thought. I was expecting to see Tri-Sprite be the most popular version, but it's not. I guess we could type in here Beaver and see what's going on. So yeah, okay, yeah, Sprite. There's 12 lists on the website compared to 4 Tri-Sprite versions. So yeah, this is just a hit for Sprite in general. It's not just Tri-Sprite. I think it really hits Tri-Sprite hard because now there's a Beast problem. The Tri-Brigade cards require you to have Beast, Wing Beast, and Beast Warriors in your graveyard. Of course, like everyone knows this. Oop, spelled that wrong. So the Tri-Brigade monsters like Kit, Nerval, Fractal, and Karis, they all require you to banish Beast, Wing Beast, or Beast Warriors from your graveyard to summon out your Ling monsters. And not having the Beaver in the graveyard anymore is going to be make it more difficult for the Tri-Brigade cards to make their extended Link plays, because this, of course, is a Beast, and you could use it. It just puts 2 free Beast in your graveyard when you go for the Angler play. There are ways to potentially substitute this. We could instead play cards like Nimble Manga and Nimble Musabi, however you say that. I'm probably saying that wrong. Yeah, there's ways you can just play these instead. Will that be good? I don't know. No idea. But we'll see. Yeah, it's honestly, I feel like they just did this. I know I'm talking about this a lot, but I feel like they just did this because they don't want to hit Sprend, or they don't want to hit Elf. And that's kind of unfortunate because Sprend and Elf are both broken cards, and it just makes those cards worse. It makes it so us as, Master Duel players who invested in this stuff, obviously, Sprend and Elf are both URs. This card, Elf should be at 1. It should either be at 1 or it should be banned, realistically. And a lot of these other Sprite hits like Swap Frog and stuff, they shouldn't have been hit, at least in my opinion. So doing it the way they've done it has made it so we don't get this URCP back. So from a Master Duel player economic standpoint, it's really unfortunate that they've done these hits. I do understand it to an extent because Konami needs people to buy their packs in order for this game to be successful and for it to continue to be a free-to-play friendly game, which it is, which is a very good thing. But for people who are not spending a bunch of money on this game, not being able to dismantle cards like Elf, because this card's not useless now, but it's becoming more and more useless every time Sprite gets hit. And the more Sprite gets hit, the less useful Sprend becomes as well, right? So these URs just kind of being they're kind of sunk cost now, right? We put URs into this, and we're only going to be getting 10 back if we dismantle them. It's quite unfortunate. But, enough about like the economic side of Master Duel side. This, I understand the hit from that perspective, and I also understand it from like a consistency perspective. It does hurt it. It does hurt the Tri-Sprite version. And maybe it's going to push us in the direction of playing Gishki Sprite, which there are going to be new Gishki cards coming out here in the next pack. So I don't know too much about this deck. I will do some research before the pack comes out, of course. But we have 4 new cards we're getting here. We're getting a Ritual, a level 2, and then a few spells here. So I know in the TCG for a while before Elf was banned, this stuff was quite good with Sprite. So, who knows? Maybe it'll be good here. That would be quite cool. Moving on to Havness, going from 1 to 2, or 2 to 1, I apologize. This hit makes absolutely no sense to me. I don't understand why they would do this. That's not how you spell even, that's not even close to how you spell tier, man. I cannot type. Okay, so tier limits. Since the banning of Merly, tier has not been good. As you can see, there's a lot of stuff going on here. We have Punk tier, Cash tier, Punk Cash tier, Lunalite tier, Pure tier. Lots of different versions of tier being played, and this might be just Fenrir in the deck. I'm not sure exactly. This has got Unicorn as well. But regardless, there's no set way to play tier limits right now. And as a result, the deck has not been performing well. I can't remember the last time tier limits topped a tournament. We can actually filter for that. The last time tier limits topped a tournament in the past 4 weeks, we have 4 toppings. Okay? These are both special event tournaments. They're not even real. We have a 60 card Chaos tier pile. This is not really tier limits. And then we have a Goaty tier, which is not really a tier limit deck. Those are the only 2 tier limit decks that have topped tournaments in the past month. Tier was not good. It just straight up was not good. It has not been good since the Merly ban. And hitting Havness here is a preemptive measure to hit Cash tier. So, of course, we are going to be getting tier limits Kashtira in the new pack, and this is going to be a quote unquote buff to the tier limit strategy because it allows you to mill more, it allows you to extend, it allows you to play the Kashtira cards because they're more efficient with your engine. You can play cards like Fenrir and they can search this, the field spell that can search this, so on and so forth. It makes the Kashtira field spell, that is, and the tier limits field spell searches this. So it makes the deck better. Honestly, it makes the deck better. So from that perspective, I understand hitting the Havness, but the deck was so bad as is, I don't really see a reason to actually hit it with this Havness ban. Now, if they're gonna do this, I would rather them just bring back Merly. Just limit Sharon to 1, limit Havness to 1, limit Merly to 1, and then let us play with like the tier names all at 1 and see what happens. The deck will be very good again. It won't be the best deck by any means, but it'll be very good again. And ban all the Ishizu cards. Like, just ban all 4 of them. Like, because they should all be banned anyways. And let's see what people cook up with if you really want tier to still be alive. Which, it sounds like they don't. Maybe they just don't, and that's the reason they're hitting this. I don't know. So this hit really doesn't make any sense to me. Also, I'm just going to put this out there. I'm not advocating for Merly to come back. I think it's nice that tier is finally out of the meta. But I'm saying, if you want tier to still be playable, you need to bring that card back, because until then, the deck's not going to be playable, no matter what support comes out, really. Or no matter what Kashtira cards come out, tier's not going to be playable again without Merly. I don't think. Going on to the ban list, the banned cards, we got Kelvek being banned. It's about time. I really don't know why this is banned now as opposed to the last ban list. They should have just banned it last one, but I'm glad they did it now. To be honest, this kind of feels like hey guys, yeah, we killed tier. Here's some URCP for you. That's kind of what it feels like, because this wasn't really seeing any play. One day it might see play again. Of course, one day it would have seen play again. It would have needed to be banned. But when Cash comes out, tier's not going to be a thing anymore. I don't think people realize. Tier limit was good in the OCG because it was just a bizarre situation. In Master Duel, it wasn't going to be the same thing. At least I don't think so. But I don't know. I think they just banned this kind of as throwing us a little bone. But anyways, it should be banned. It's a toxic card. Then finally we have Diablosis banned here. Thank the Lord this thing got banned. I did not want to play against this. I know everyone was kind of freaking out about the zone locking, but the zone locking is really not the problem with this card in my opinion. The zone locking is very rare. I'm pretty sure it's a 3-card combo that you need, and it's a very specific 3-card combo, and it's actually quite difficult to pull off. It's very susceptible to nib. What I'm more frustrated about with this card in general is the ability to rip a card from your extra deck, obviously, and the ability to just pick apart your opponent's deck. You know, you can banish 15 cards from your opponent's deck face down before they even get a chance to play. That's, in my opinion, way more toxic than locking a couple zones or potentially locking all 5 zones of something, right? We know how annoying Runic is, and this is even more annoying because those cards are face down. They're literally gone unless you're a Rise Hard. So I think this was a good ban. I'm really happy about it. I don't know what else they're going to do to Kashtira, but I'm excited to see. So yeah, that's the ban list. Nothing too crazy going on here. The tier hits don't make sense to me, but I'm kind of glad they did at least ban this for the URCP, but whatever. So moving on to Kashtira. I want to discuss this deck, and I want to talk to you guys about what I think is going to happen with this deck, and how Konami is going to need to address the inevitable Kashtira problem that we will be facing. This deck that you're seeing on screen, it's not a complete product. There's some changes that are going to be needed to be made here. Obviously, you're going to need to cut 2 cards, get it down to 40. You might be able to cut one of the traps. Don't know yet. The field spell might be limited or semi-limited or whatever. Don't know yet. Theosis might be hit. Don't know yet. A Rise Hard might be hit. Don't know yet. Blah, blah, blah. But this is like a framework, right? This is just a base deck list that you could, like, you know, start playing assuming nothing gets hit, right? What needs to happen? What's going on in the OCG? So I'm going to like switch between these 2 filters here and also look at the Master meta because the dueling book might not be updated yet. But we're going to talk about the different approaches in TCG and OCG with Kashtira. So in the TCG, what's hit is the Unicorns at 2. Where's a Rise? A Rise is banned. And to my knowledge, that's the only thing that's hit in TCG. Yeah, that's the only thing. So it's Unicorn is at 2, and Rise and a Rise Hard is banned. And Diablosis is banned, of course. In the OCG, Fenrir's banned, Unicorn's at 1, a Rise Hard's at 3, Planet's at 1, and Diablosis is at 3 in the OCG. So and also there might be some other hits that I'm not really, thinking of because they're not named Kashtira or whatever. Forgive me if I'm forgetting something. But we see 2 different philosophies in the OCG and the TCG. How is Master Duel going to handle this problem? And is it a problem that needs to be handled? Going into Kashtira, a lot of people might be excited to have a new, really powerful deck in the format. And that's cool. That's fine. It is going to be very powerful because the whole deck is just very powerful in general. All the cards are very good. They're all value generators. They all combo very efficiently. It doesn't take a lot of cards to combo. It's incredibly consistent regardless of the hits. It's got a very high ceiling. It's got a very good floodgate. It's got very good matchups across the board. The deck is just phenomenal. The reason I say there's going to be a Kashtira problem in Master Duel is because of a Rise Heart, of course. This is a floodgate, right? Any card sent to the graveyard is banished instead. So this is a walking floodgate. It's a walking macrocosmos. It's a walking dimensional shifter. The reason this is going to be such a severe issue in Master Duel in particular, as opposed to the OCG or TCG, which was also an issue there, is because the way that the Master Duel team has traditionally decided to handle decks in the game is they want as much stuff as possible to be playable without anything being like overly oppressive or overly like top tier. They tried to do that with tier limits, as we saw. They tried to pre-hit the deck so it wasn't tier 0. They didn't really exactly succeed in that. The deck was still by far the best deck. It was tier 0 for a while. And they slowly continued to hit stuff on tier limits, hitting cards like Soliak, so on and so forth, hitting Foolish Burial Goods, King of the Swamp, XYZ, to try to balance tier limits out. And eventually, what they decided to do was they decided to take a new approach, because in the OCG, tier limits were good for way too long. In the TCG, tier limits just got annihilated by one singular ban list. So I think Master Duel tried to do something a little bit different with tier. And they tried to ban Merly and see if the deck can survive and see what exactly is going to happen, see what the deck can turn into, see what's going to go on here, because you don't want to completely piss off the player base and just ban all the cards, right? Because then no one, everyone that likes tier doesn't get to play tier anymore. So they wanted to take a new approach, and they wanted to try to keep it alive as long as possible. However, what I'm saying now is starting to make a little bit less sense, because all of a sudden, out of nowhere, when the deck was bad, they hit it harder, and the deck is realistically just dead, completely dead. But traditionally, they keep stuff around in this game with, what's a good example here? I'm sorry, I'm trying to think. With Sprite, they're trying to take different paths to hitting the deck. They want the deck to still be fundamentally playable, functionally playable. They're keeping all the core cards. They're not banning cards, right? They're not banning Jet. They're not banning Elf. They're not banning Sprint. They're not banning Blue, XYZ. They're just hitting stuff. They're hitting the consistency of stuff. So the deck is still functioning and still playable for people who like it, but also not top tier anymore. However, the difference between those decks and Kashtira is because Kashtira and Arise Heart specifically gatekeeps so many decks in the format. If we're looking at this just list of decks in Master Duel, these are all decks that have been submitted to the website, of course. Let's just go through really quickly some of them and see what struggles versus Macrocosmos. Purely, it definitely can. It uses the graveyard somewhat, it doesn't need the graveyard all the time, but it uses the graveyard. Dragon Link definitely uses the graveyard. Labyrinth definitely uses the graveyard if you're playing the furniture build and stuff. Mathmech definitely uses the graveyard. Makenko, it does use the graveyard, but it can play without it. Naturia Runic definitely uses the graveyard a lot. Ninjas, to be honest, I don't really know anything about the ninja cards, but you guys can comment more in the comment section below what's going on with those. So I'll skip that one for now. Punk uses the graveyard. Rika uses the graveyard, although Rika can play Shifter, so this one is less impacted, I think, but overall, Rika does use the graveyard, right? Sword Soul, the Tinny cards use the graveyard. Traptrix uses the graveyard. Sprite uses the graveyard. Tearlaments is the graveyard. Flunderees doesn't use the graveyard, obviously. Dinos uses the graveyard. Scareclaw uses the graveyard. Heroes uses the graveyard. Also puts up a Macrocosmos as well, so screw them. Despia, graveyard. Kashtira, no graveyard. Live Twin Sprite, graveyard. Striker, graveyard. You guys are getting the point, I would assume, at this point. The majority of these decks are going to have a quote-unquote Arise Heart problem. So how do we deal with this? There's a few solutions. The first one is just to ban this card in a few months. In 2 months, just ban it. Once it's out of the shop, just ban it. If they're going to do that, though, they'll probably, in my opinion, give it the Kit Kalos treatment and make it a SR. Right? So Kit Kalos was an SR, and all of us, basically everybody was like, why is this an SR? Why? Oh, because they're going to ban it, and they don't want to give us the URCP back. Now, they didn't ban this, and I think that was an on-the-fly decision. I think their plan was initially to ban this, then they just shifted to banning Merly for whatever reason. And you can argue whether that's better or worse or whatever, but they just shifted it. And Merly was a normal, right? Merly was a normal rare. So that obviously didn't matter to us. If this card is an SR, know that it's probably going to get banned. Have be prepared for this card to be banned, I should say. Another way to do this would be to limit it to 1, and hope that it being at 1 is enough to prevent it from just floodgating and gatekeeping everything. that's really not going to do anything because at 1, it's toxic in a completely different way than it being at 3. But that might be an approach. Another approach would be like a more OCG approach. That's what TCG did, right? They limited it to 1, and then they eventually banned it. In the OCG, what they did was they just banned the other cards. They banned Fenrir, which I'm not against. Just as side note, I'm not against banning Fenrir. This card is absolutely broken. And this card is literally probably should be played in every single deck that can play it. Like, it's absolutely insane. It's one of the best board breakers in the game. It's one of the best going first cards and going second cards in the game. Right? It's like Maxi Fenrir are like right there at the top of the game, which is absolutely crazy. They also limited Unicorn. They limited the field spell. They hit the deck in other ways, right? They just made it really inconsistent. Maybe unplayable because they banned Fenrir. So I could see them going like limit Fenrir to 1, limit Unicorn to 1, limit Race Off to 1, limit Theosis to 1 or something like that to try to deal with this deck. That's potentially a way to go. I don't know. What do you guys think? That's really the whole point of this. Is like, what do you guys think Kashtira is going to happen to Kashtira? If I had to predict, at least initially, I think this is probably what we're going to get. We're probably going to get this deck right here. Field Spell at 1, Theosis at 3. I feel like this is going to be a UR. I think what they're going to do is they're going to make this a UR, but have it limited to 1, make this a UR, and then they're going to make this an SR. Would be my prediction. Then these are probably going to be like, well, not these, because it's already in the game. This one in like Tier Limits Kashtira is going to be like SRs or something. I don't know. I could see this happening. Them just only hitting the field spell. And then in 2 months, banning this. Or in 2 months, when all this stuff's out of the shop, hit this down to 1, hit this down to 1. Something like that. I got no idea. But for the next 2 months, we're going to have a serious problem. And that's so many decks, all these decks that we just went over, and many, 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 many more, many of these decks on here are just going to get gatekeeped by a Rise Heart. So what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section down below. What is Konami going to do about the Rise Heart problem? What are they going to do about the Kashtira problem? Do they need to address this deck sooner than they address other decks? By meaning, are they going to need to address this deck before it's even out of the shop? Because this card fundamentally changes the way Konami's, like, it goes against Konami's Master Duel philosophy. And that's keep as many decks relevant as possible. Keep as many decks playable as possible. A Rise Heart as a card goes against that philosophy. So I don't know what they're going to do, but I'm really excited to see. So thank you guys so much for tuning into this video. I probably rambled like way too long on some parts, so I apologize for that. But for anyone who's listened to this long, thank you so much. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your day. Peace.